Christopher Bell, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
Hi, Axel. Very good, thanks. Nice to meet you.
Beautiful. This is an episode that I'm really excited for because I'm slowly conquering the film industry. We've had director, cameraman, actors, actresses. Now, for the part that completes the whole project, the editor. I'm fascinated by editing, and I think it's an art form in itself. There's so many different elements of it. How did you get into editing?
I wrote a short story and turned it into a script, and then shot it in my apartment. Built a dolly and did all that stuff, and bought an old Mac and bought Final Cut Pro One, and it was a bit of an epiphany. I just realized this is what I wanted to be doing the rest of my life. And then I walked across the street to where David Richardson was working. He had a shop there. Knocked on his door and said, I want to be an editor. And he slammed the door in my face. And then I knocked on the door again, and he came in, he opened up the door. He didn't say anything. He just turned around and walked up the stairs, and I followed him. And that's how I started editing.
What a way to start. I mean, little did you know how amazing it would end up turning out. But what in particular attracted you to editing? Because when people think of movies, they most likely think of either being the actor, the actress, or a stunt person or a director. But editing is fascinating.
That's a good question. It was basically just doing it. I was acting, I built sets, I kind of did everything around it. I knew I wanted to work in film, and it was the thing that really just grabbed me. I became addicted to putting the performances together, choosing the performances, music, effects, and all that. I come from a musical background, so it really felt like composing in a way. I had all these instruments, and it was up to me to put them together to complete the symphony. You know what I mean? And it was just really it was fascinating and very, very fulfilling.
You've worked on over 30 movies and TV series in total, which, I mean, I take my hat off to you because that is just an incredible achievement. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer editing movies more or TV series more?
Feature films, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like the full gestation period, the 90 minutes or whatever it is. It's a perfect format.
I'm really curious, perhaps extremely fascinated as well. How did you start learning editing movies? Because they're completely different to like YouTube videos or commercials and stuff.
Yeah, good question. I basically started by doing it. I was lucky enough to be an assistant, again, to David Richardson. And then after that, with Nicholas Trzesan-Voskovich, and then further than that, when I moved to London, I worked with Christopher Rouse, with Paul Greengrass, and it's just a lot of practice. But really, to go down to the bottom of it, I started cutting effects, sound effects, and music and stuff, because the editors were there to cut picture, but they didn't have a lot of time to cut sound effects. So I would come in, I'd work all day, do my regular duties, and then stay all night and cut in sound effects and music. And that really taught me what balance does, what dynamics do. I got to look how the editor cut the scene. And then I moved on from there to assembling. So I would assemble scenes for editors, and I learned how to cut. Bottom line is really just by doing it. And I would say, Axel, there's no way to learn how to be an editor unless you get on an Avid or a Premiere or whatever the software is and cut picture, and start learning the software, learning how things work, watching other editors work, and just starting cutting picture and practice and practice and practice.
At the end of the day, with anything, you just got to start, practice, keep at it. That's pretty much the solution on how to improve. Because I'm hearing, I've seen also quite a bit of your work as well. Some movies, not so much, but there are always clips when I'm trying to find it. And I'm trying to find which style you're more like. I'm curious, who did you look up to in terms of editing, and where'd you get your inspiration from?
That's an interesting question. Like, as far as style, I don't think you'd notice a style, or I would hope that you wouldn't notice a style in any of my work, because each I serve each film, I serve each script, I serve each production, and they're all completely different. You know, for example, working with Christopher Rouse, arguably he's one of the best editors on the planet. His style is on the Bourne movies was very frenetic, like 6 frames, 5 frames, almost like an impressionistic painting. And I've certainly learned how to do that in fight sequences and things like that. And you really want to speed stuff up, it works. But there's and that even that being said, you look at Chris's other movies and he doesn't cut that way. So again, style is just about serving the movie and what's best for the movie, listening to the performances of the actors, listening to the emotional path of the scene, and then the emotional path of the whole movie and how it's put together. So did that answer your question? You had a second part to your question.
Oh man, that answered it perfectly. Yeah. The second part was, who do you look up to in terms of
Oh,
editing?
I see. Oh, like so many great guys. I mean, I don't want to go off a list a bunch. Joe Wright, Chris Rouse, Nicholas, David Richardson. Oh, your dad knows really well. He worked with a lot. There's so many great editors. There's so many amazing directors who I looked up to too, and there's so many amazing films that I look to and study and watch over and over and over and over again. And Axyl, what also is also true. Looking up to somebody is one thing, and learning from them. It's also looking at a lot of shitty movies or working on a lot of shitty movies, which I've done, is another incredible way to learn how to get better, for sure. So, if I could say anything, just watch everything and learn from everything.
Well, I guess it's true, because once you experience something that's good and you experience something that's bad, you can just compare and be like, yeah, okay, this one.
Well, it is that, but it's also more, if you can fix something that's really shitty, then when you're working on a really good production with like amazing actors and great crew and stuff like that, it's 100% easier than having to put together something that needs a lot of work, So, and when you start as an editor, you don't always get the chance to work with, incredible directors and actors and production teams and stuff like that. So you're working with limited budgets, and it's really upon you as sort of the third script to make it good. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Do you feel pressured in a way, because the final product that comes out, it's pretty much in your hands in terms of how it's cut, how it's colored and everything. How does that pressure, if it even pressures you, how do you deal with that?
I've never had an issue with pressure. And the reason being is because I love what I do so much that I'm never tired, even I'm working long hours, which you always do, even though there's a lot of money on the line. And yes, of course, there is a lot of pressure. They finish shooting, they've, maybe almost run out of money and have a little bit of money left for post. They want it done fast. They want to make sure that they've got something good. But I'm lucky, I guess, in a way that I never felt pressured by that, just because it's so enjoyable to be doing it, so fulfilling,
Because I know a couple of people, even they don't do this professionally or anything, but even just editing a simple YouTube video, they feel like, oh, my editing's not good enough, oh this, oh that, and they just decide not to do it because of just the pressure of what a few people may say, which I think is incredible, by the way. The fact that you're able to edit these big movies, make it look so great, at the same time be like, yeah man, this is just kind of what I do. I think that's super cool.
Thanks.
I'm interested. I know everyone prefers one genre instead of the other. What's your favorite genre to edit and why?
I don't have a favorite genre. Just like when I enjoy watching movies, I don't have a favorite genre per se. I like anything that's good. Great performances for me are my meat and potatoes. Because that's what I really get to work with. If the performances aren't good, then it's kind of a drag, So right now, for example, I'm cutting a straight up genre movie, a horror movie. It's a lot of fun and it's really challenging, and you have to put on a sort of a different hat, and you have to watch a lot of horror movies to figure out how those things done, how's the pacing done. And, and before that, I did a film called Strange Darling, which is a thriller. And they have similar traits that need to be employed, but they're equally as fun to work on, you know. And I think tomorrow, if you gave me a kids movie to do, I'd be equally psyched to jump on it, you know.
Mm.
What I like to watch is a little bit different, but I would say just, you know, professionally, it's all down to like good material. If you get good material, then you're a happy editor.
I guess I'm saying I'm curious quite a few times because I'm genuinely just curious. What are some of the, in your opinion, what are some of the challenges with editing? Not so much as cutting the film, but more so in terms of communicating with the director, with perhaps the camera operator, maybe even some of the actors and the producers. How do you balance all of that?
You know, it's politics. So there's a ton of politics in the edit suite. Everybody's nervous. Everybody's freaking out. Like, how did we do? Is it going to work? Did this scene work? Do we need to pick up something? Do we need to go back and spend some money? So you're very right. There's a ton of dynamics going on. Hopefully and luckily, we get a certain amount of period that we can just do the director's cut. So I'll go on set and cut, and then maybe have a week or two after to put together an editor's cut, and then we have a chance to make the director's cut. So in that time, you hope you keep all the dogs at bay a little bit, you know, and then the producers will come in, and then it's the producer's cut time, and then things, you know, does the studio like it? Do they give notes, and back and forth, and things can get really, you know, sticky at one point, and there's a lot of pressure, and listen, you know, movies cost millions of dollars to make, so the people that pay for it want to make sure that it's what they like. I or my director may have a different version of that, so we have to come at aligned at one point. Plus there's things like, will it sell? Well, if we leave that in, is it going to be sellable? Maybe not, you know, so maybe we'll have to remove that. Might be a piece that I really love, or a director really loves, you know, or a producer really loves, but we all just realize that, oh, we've got to do that. So it's a lot of dynamics for sure. A lot of, you know, there's a lot of big shots in the room at one point, and it can get really heavy, you know, and it's a matter of being a good politician, and it's a matter of, like, for me, always, it's a matter of serving the film. Like, I will fight tooth and nail for a shot if I think it should be in the movie, you know, to the detriment of my job sometimes, you know, but I need to do that. I figured that's my job, you know. No shit should pass this edit, you know. It should only be the best stuff on the page, as it were, you know, and the best for the film. Past that, then I at one point you have to kind of give over to, you know, the studio or the producers, or what have you, you know, and what their version of the movie is. So, yeah.
Wow.
Not
I
always
knew editing was complex, but man, I didn't know it was that complicated. Perhaps you don't have to say the film in particular. Which was the what was the most complicated experience you've had in terms of editing?
complicated. I mean, well, technically and creatively, probably Bourne Ultimatum. I was a first assistant on that, but it was a very dense shoot. I mean, they had millions of feet of film, and we were shooting on real film back then.
Oh,
You know, we had, like, Christopher Rouse was the main editor, but then we had, I guess, we had like 3 editors, and then I don't remember, man. It was like, I think we had 8 assistants or something like that. We were carrying film at the beginning, so we were making a work print to see what the print was like, and then that was being transferred to HD cam tape by another assistant called Esther, so we could upload the dailies so we could see them in full res in Chris's room with Mark, his first assistant. And, you know, it was 3 cameras just rolling over slates. It was an enormous amount of film, and also everybody was mic'd. So we had multiple multi-tracks of audio, and it was at the time, I think it was a $120 million movie, which isn't that big of a movie, but that was, you know, whatever that was 10, 12 years ago. So it was a big, complicated movie, and it was also a complicated edit as well, because especially the way Chris works, you know, it was quite you know, all those fight sequences, all the car chases. You can imagine all that stuff. It was a hell of a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work.
I mean, my dad shared some experiences with working with actual film. That sounds overwhelming, but the end product was great, which I guess in the end is always the key. I mean, that decider, did this movie turn out the way we wanted it to be?
And
I'm
listen,
curious.
nothing looks like film. Everybody should shoot on film. I don't care what you're doing. If you want to make a movie and you want to express yourself, I mean, this is just my personal opinion. There's nothing that looks like film. You can dress, you can, you know, you can eat it, you can chew it. It's got depth. It's got life. It's a moving entity. You know, shooting digitally is, I mean, there's a lot of beautiful movies that are shot digitally, no doubt about it. Just personally, film was and still is the king, you know.
Are any of the more recent movies that you do shot on film, or have they all converted to digital?
No, the last Strange Darling was all shot on 35 millimeter, yeah, by Giovanni Ribisi. Yeah.
Let's speak about that one actually, because it's new and I wasn't able to get my hands on the full version due to some reasons, but I've seen quite a few clips of it. Your editing is beautiful, the sound, the build up. What was your approach to that movie in comparison to some of your earlier movies that you did in your career?
What was my which? I sorry, didn't hear you.
How was your approach different for this movie?
No different, except that it's like the best movie I've ever worked on. You know, when I saw the dailies coming in, the director's one of my dearest friends too, so that helps. And the actress Willa, you know, Willa is like, just, I've seen her work before in the past, and I think she's just something very, very special. She's got incredible range and depth. And I read the script, of course, and I knew what the music was going to be like, and it's just absolute great joy. It's a great fucking movie, and everybody should go see it in a theater if they can.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Doesn't that just fill you up with that much? When you do you read the script before you work on a movie for editors?
100%. Yeah. It's, you know, there's an old French expression, and it translated in English as like the fish stinks from the head. If you don't have a good script, then the chance of having a good finished movie down the line is diminished severely. You know, it can happen, but a script is the blueprint. It's the skeleton. Everything hangs on that, and you should be able to know all the tones of what's going to be in the movie. You should know about pacing. You should know, obviously, about the dialogues, how people are speaking. The script is everything. Not to say it doesn't change. There's an old adage, you know, there's three scripts. There's the written script, there's the shooting script, and then there's the editing script. And that's very, very true. But if you don't start out with something really good, then the chances of ending up with something good are very slim.
I know you're extremely busy, so we've just got a few more questions before we wrap up.
Sure, man.
Okay, so you've been doing this. I mean, you've worked on over 30 movies, amazing TV series. How have you grown from the first edit you've done to now where you've done an amazing movie like Strange Darling and the other things you've got coming up? What tweaks and changes did you make into perhaps your approach, your mindset, your mentality?
Very simply, I would just say experience. And experience builds confidence. So in working on many, many different genres of stuff, many, you know, different budgets, you know, shitty scripts, amazing scripts, you know, I got to be sitting here where I am now because of experience and because of practice, you know, and I was very lucky to work as an assistant and work my way up and work with some great editors and watch them work. You know, to that point, that's been taken away a lot, and it increasingly is taken away because digital, it's very easy to get the files as opposed to film. You know, it took a bit of a crew to get that moving. So that loss is a great shame. But anyway, just to circle back to your question, my confidence, my abilities come from experience, come from cutting everything from comedy to action to thrillers to horror films. You know, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I thought I was an assistant and I was working on big stuff. I thought, oh, I can come to LA and I'll I'll be that guy, you know, I'll sit in that chair. I know what I'm doing. You know,
Mm.
I've seen everyone do it, and it took a long gestation period to get back up to where I am now as an editor, as a stylist assistant. So yeah, just a lot of work, Axyl. That's the main thing. Yeah.
Now, this is going to be an interesting one because my dad, I think it was my dad, I was talking to my dad and he says, once you work on a movie, you can never watch movies the same ever again. I'm sure you love watching movies. Can you actually watch a movie for a movie, or is your editing side going, oh, this should have been done differently. This one is good. This one should have been. How do you watch movies?
If it's a good movie, you don't ever ask yourself those questions.
Really?
Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like if it's a good movie and you're falling in love with the story and the performance and the art, the craft of it, you never look to see whether or not it was too bright or they stayed too long on a shot or anything like that. If it's a crap movie, then you start noticing right away, like all the pacing's all off or whatever, you know. But a well-executed movie, you're watching it because you love to watch a good movie, and you're lucky to be enveloped in the story.
It's amazing just how everything, you know, falls into place and everything comes together. I'm very interested just because I love your mindset. I love your approach. I love how you just built that confidence and you trust yourself. How do you bounce back from perhaps an edit that either doesn't go as you plan, it doesn't end up as good as you would like it to be? How do you bounce back from those things and get your confidence back?
That's interesting. I mean, I don't have a problem with let's see, to use an example, say I work on a film that I really didn't enjoy working on and I didn't like what happened to it. I would still always do my very, very best to make it the best that I can. And then at a certain point, I just have to step away and say, well, that was a good experience. I'm sorry my name is on it, you know, and just keep on walking. I don't get discouraged because I've done my best, you know, I try my best to save the movie and to make it the best it is. It may be a case if it's not a bad movie, it's just the visions between myself and creatives or the script or whatever are different. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Listen, there's no such thing as failure. It's just like it's all good.
So when you edit a movie, how much of it is your responsibility and how much of it is just what you're sent? Like, is it a 50-50? Is it more the responsibility on the end product is more so how it's shot as to your edit? Is it more your fault? How does that whole thing in terms of editing work?
Well, you know, for example, I'll get like I'm working on a film here. I'm looking at a scene bin, and I've got 3 takes in one setup, 4 in the next, and 5 in the next setup. So I have all the choices in the world to look at. Like I'm gonna look at that performance and say that's pretty good. I want to use that bit. Now I'm gonna put the next bit together. So I have a lot of say in what a scene will look like from day one, from the get go, and then you know. Ultimately, it's up to the director. He's going to come in and say, "Oh, I don't like that. I like this. I like that," and we start working together. And we work very tightly together for whatever time period that is to make them sort of the best the best cut he is. And then again, like I said before, the producers will come in and start working with the director, and we'll start making the best movie that we all can. So I don't know if there's a percentage of what, like you couldn't really say 50-50. I'm in charge of making the best cut I can. And then after that, I'm in charge of working with who's ever in the room to finish it. So, but you just hope that you have a lot of different takes and different style, different variances and performances to make the movie the best you can.
Perfect. I mean, I'm interested. I know you've mentioned how you prefer film over digital. How did you manage to keep up with the change? And where do you see filming going in the future?
Well, I didn't have to adapt to the change too much, because when I started, I was cutting film, but just prepping it. I wasn't really on a Steenbeck or a Moviola or actually really physically having to cut the film. I'm not sure I'd still be an editor today if that was the case. It's just so arduous, and those guys and girls that cut on film, they are already know what they have, where the splices have to be, because if they don't, then they make a cut and you're going to see the bump, and they have to get another work print done, and you have to be really really succinct about what you're doing. So I was lucky to become to a stage in technology where even when we were shooting on film, it was transferred digitally, and then got into an Avid, and I was cutting non-linear, so I could do whatever I want, and then at the end of the day, they'd go back to cut the film and put it together and either make a film print or a digital DI, and then make a DCP or what have you. So for me personally, that the technological change from film to digital was not big, and I'm really happy that people are going back to film more and more now to shoot on film, because it's the same for me. Where do I see it going in the future? I mean, I don't know. Everyone should just shoot on film. I mean, it looks so great. It's a beautiful medium. When you go back to film, you can store that your film in a vault and it'll last forever. As where when you shoot digitally, hard drives die, tape deteriorates, and there's just nothing like film. There's just not, and again, this is just a personal thing, but there's just nothing like it. So, you mentioned shooting on iPhones. Sean Baker made an amazing movie called Tangerine, shooting on an iPhone. And last year he just won the best prize at Cannes, shooting on film, which he prefers to shoot on. But I think the moral of it is, if you don't have film, if you don't have a red camera, if you only have an iPhone, then shoot it on an iPhone, because it doesn't matter. What matters is the story and your desire, your need to tell those stories, So in the future, I hope everyone can afford to shoot on film, and there still will be film, because that might be the case that it's already gone away so much. I hope we don't see a world where everybody's shooting on iPhone and 16:9 and posting on TikTok. I hope people continue the story of telling a 90-minute movie or a 2-hour movie, and those great stories last and proliferate. Yeah.
What an amazing way to wrap it up. Just before we wrap it up, I've got one last question. What advice would you have for those guys?
Work hard.
Beautiful. Spot on.
Work Chris, hard. Study everything. Watch every movie ever made, and just work really, really hard. It's a brutal job. The hours are crazy long. You're sitting in a chair all the time. You're in a dark room all the time. It's hard on your health. It's hard on your personal life, on your family life, on your kids. It's not an easy job. But if you love it and you find that you love it, then you just have to follow the path, and you just have to work, and make your way up. And on that note, Axyl, why can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why are you doing these podcasts, and what is your interest in filmmaking?
I just love getting knowledge from everyone. I think that as a young person, the most important thing you can do is have a brain that is like a sponge and just soak in wisdom and soak in information. And being around my dad, who's worked on, I don't even know how, 70 plus movies, I've had the opportunity to just sit and talk to amazing people, and I learned so much from them. I've learned a lot about cameras and how they work. I've learned more about directing. I've learned more about acting and fighting. And the one part in particular where I quite never really understood was editing. And that's why when my dad suggested you, I was like, he is one person that I really want to talk to. Also, I just think the thing with podcasting as well is, I don't know, I've always loved podcasts, and I always think that there's value in conversation. And if I'm able to give someone, whether it's one person, if it's 5 people, some insight and some perspective, maybe it will help them as much as it helps me.